Hello and welcome to the Brewed Awakening podcast. Today, let's welcome Mitzi Perdue.
Woohoo!
Wow! Mitzi is the daughter of one family business titan. You know what? Her father founded the Sheraton hotel chain.
And we love going to the Sheraton.
Absolutely.
But also, her late husband was also a huge businessman in his own right. He actually had the family business of poultry. But then let's not forget about Mitzi herself. She is a powerful businesswoman. In fact, Mitzi is happy to share actionable advice on how they created and maintained their family business with a tradition of over 276 years.
Wow.
Hello, welcome to Brewed Awakening. Grab a coffee and get ready to awaken real, tangible, and lasting results through this podcast.
I have a question for you. Do you have a to-do list? Of course you do. It's hard to survive without it. This is the transactional part of your life.
The more empowering question is this: do you have a to-be list? This is the transformational part of your life.
In this podcast, we will discuss topics that will inspire you to become the great person you were destined to be.
The circumstances you find yourself in today do not determine where you will be tomorrow.
So grab a coffee, awaken the transformation within you. I'm Robert.
And I'm Ruth. It's time for your Brewed Awakening.
Hello, Mitzi, and welcome to our podcast. We're so excited that you come and join us today and spend a few minutes with us. And we're looking forward to what you're going to share with us.
Thank you, Mitzi. We are just blessed and honored to have you. We are privileged. And we know that you have 276 years of staying together as a family, and that just excites us. We're super excited that you're here. Welcome.
Well, it's a complete joy, and I'm totally blessed and honored that you included me, and I'll share everything that I can.
That's wonderful. So I think you have a first question.
Right. I actually read your story in Mark Victor Hansen's book, Ask.
Ah.
So, and that was, you did a great job. But one of the things that I really liked, you've had a very exciting, full life. It's been just incredible. And I guess we all have, it depends on your viewpoint, but tell us a bit about your journey.
Your background and your story, we'd love to hear it.
Yes.
That reminds me a little bit, I was once in television, and I had a favorite joke question,
Okay.
But it was a joke question. It was, I would pick up my microphone and I would point it towards the person, and I'd say, remember this is joking, tell me everything there is about everything you know.
Yeah, that's
so
great.
that wasn't a very specific question.
But it did give me a chance to tell about my joke question. But I will answer your question. I will tell you everything I know about everything there is. I did grow up in the Sheraton hotel family.
Yes.
My father was the co-founder along with my uncle, and he started out with no employees. He ended up with 20,000 employees at the time
Wow.
he was dead. And our company, the Henderson Estate Company, it began in 1840. And we've been having family reunions for 130 years.
Oh, man.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, this year we're going to have our 130th reunion, but it's going to be by Zoom. So we're going to have a modern family.
Yes.
But people sometimes want to know what it is that made us last so long.
Yes.
And there's so many aspects to that, but among them, the Henderson Estate Company, it did begin in 1840, and we've been in numbers of business along the way, and including, how about my family is invested in subways in Argentina, in binocular factories in Germany, and then the biggest, or at least the best known thing that we've invested in was hotels. And that was, my father did start the Sheraton Hotel Company along with my uncle. And then we sold it at my father's death. But I was fascinated growing up. It was real clear to me that I had been born into a very successful family.
Yeah.
It's hard for a kid to miss it if wherever you travel, you're staying in the presidential suites and people are really paying attention to your mother and father. So it was really clear to me that this was a very, very successful father. Oh, including, there are other reasons why it was clear to me. Our summer house had a ballroom.
Oh my goodness.
The ballroom holds 200 people.
In the summer house.
Can we come? Can we come?
Would you please? Because it's still in the family.
Oh, wow.
Okay, but I was doing all that boasting. I hope we're among friends and I've got permission to boast.
Yes,
Absolutely.
please,
We
yes.
want to hear this.
Okay, but I did get even as an 8-year-old, it was really clear that that I had parents that were somewhat different from my little neighbors.
Yeah.
And I used to ask my father all the time, how did you do it? Because what was he doing that made him so successful and so different?
Right.
And I think he had 100 different answers. One of my favorites that possibly might be useful to our audience is he had a theory on human relations. He said that his entire success was due to the people who worked with him. And so if that's true, and I'm going to buy that it is true, how do you get that extra measure of like commitment, engagement, devotion that makes somebody just regularly go the extra mile and stay with you for life? And I began to get clues of how he did it when you tell me stories like what I'm about to share with you. And brace, because it's a several-minute story.
Good.
That's fine.
I can't wait to hear it. And I'm sure it's about treating your employees like royalty.
Exactly. You read the script.
I can't wait to hear the story.
Okay, but she didn't read the script because there is no script. But I will tell you, and you did get the essence of it even before I said it. He told me that when he started the Sheraton Hotels, it was at the height of the Great Depression.
Yes.
And that's particularly relevant today because people are up against the same kind of thing now of just discouragement, despair, worry. Just the Depression was a terrible experience, and it has so many harmonics with what's going on today that it's amazing. Well, in the 1930s, let's say we're talking the early 30s, let's say it's 1933. And at that time, hotels were going bankrupt right and left.
Yes.
And he was buying them, which meant that it was very easy to get them for 10 cents on the dollar.
Yes.
Well, Father he was to the bone a contrarian. And so when everybody was rushing away from this, he would buy them. But what did he do that could make his hotels a success? And of course, little kid, really curious about Daddy, I'd ask him. And he told me that whenever he'd take over a hotel, the day that he took possession, he'd invite all the employees in. And hotels often have more employees than you'd guess. They could have 400, 800 employees.
Yeah.
And he'd invite them all to come together into the ballroom, and he'd be up on the stage addressing them.
Wow.
But Father was a smart guy, and he realized that every single employee in his audience was really demoralized and probably scared, because this was a period at least in the United States, and I'm going to bet Canada as well, where unemployment was 25%.
Yeah.
If you lost your job, it meant the bread line. And how do you come home and tell your spouse, how do you put food on the table? So they're just red alert, worried, nervous, expecting that he would probably fire them and bring in his own friends.
Yes. Wow.
So the first words out of his mouth when he's addressing his new employees was, "Every one of you keeps your job." And can you imagine the sigh of relief?
That just gave me goosebumps.
And then he explained why, or explained to them. He said, "You know your job better than anybody else in the world, and you're going to see that I'm going to give you the resources and the encouragement to show the world just how good you are.
Oh, wow.
And in a few months, we're going to show the rest of the city that things can turn around. We're going to be the best served, the most financially stable, the most popular hotel in the whole city. And others can see that even if times are dire, that things can change and get better."
Yes.
Well,
Fabulous. Wow.
and also, I'm asking Father, why did you put it that way? And he said, because people have a compulsion to live up to or down to your expectations.
Isn't that true?
But the story goes on. He said the next day, all the employees in the hotel would get to see something amazing. They'd see whole troops and cavalcades of like decorators and, plumbers. They would be refurbishing the hotel But the first money Father ever spent, he told me, was never on the areas that the public would see. Where he spent the first money with all these people who were coming in to repair and upgrade and refurbish the hotel was in the employee dining rooms, the employee lockers, the employee showers, the rickety old elevators. The first money he ever spent was always to signal to the employees how important they were.
I've never heard that before.
That's brilliant.
And this again gets back to his saying that people have a compulsion to live up to or down to your expectations. So show them, it's not just words. And then he said something else. He said that what was really important had to do with persuasion. And he said persuasion, he told me back, I'm going to think 40 or 50 years ago, he told me that persuasion comes in 3 flavors.
Okay.
He said the first one is he could have stood up in front of his employees and used intimidation.
Yes.
That's the first flavor. He could have stood up in front of them and said, shape up or you're fired. And he said, there is some persuasiveness to that, but it's done grudgingly. Yes. They're not going to do it with love. They're not going to go out of their way to help. They're just going to avoid getting fired.
Yeah.
So he said intimidation is just intrinsically a really pretty ineffective way to get people to do what you want. Flavor number 2, bribery. He could have stood up there and told his new employees, now, if you do a really good job, there's a raise in it for you. There's a bonus in it for you. But he said bribery is actually a rotten way of doing persuasion, because it's entirely transactional. The people are working for this raise or this bonus. They're not working for the overall good of the entire enterprise.
Right.
So intimidation and bribery, So what does work? And his magic answer was inspiration. He said, inspire, don't require. He said that in his initial lecture to his employees, it wasn't about, I want you to wash dishes better or carry suitcases better or make beds, do a better job making the beds. No, your job is to help build the most successful, popular, best served, inspirational hotel in the city and to be an example to everybody else.
Yes.
And another phrase from my father, which I'm eager to share with everybody. Ta-da!
Yes.
A leader's job is to give people a better vision of themselves.
Oh,
is that not cool?
We're going to write that one down.
Yeah. Do you know, as you just have a pause there, when I was reading about you, one of the things that resonated with me very, very highly, you said that your father was kind and very patient with you, with your questions. And as I read that and I thought about that, Mitzi, that's the kind of dad that I want to aspire to be, to be patient and kind with my kids and to help them move up the ladder, as it were, like your dad helped you. That is a brilliant line, and I know that that's very special in your life.
Well, I loved him and my mother dearly, but I guess since he was the entrepreneur, I'll focus on him. If you want me to talk about how wonderful mother was, I will, but I figure that it's probably a little bit more relevant since back then they had very traditional roles. Mother was the wife, the mother, the hostess, and father was the guy who went out and took great big risks and had vision. And he did say that his success on every level was the people who worked with him, but he also put a lot of effort into raising his children, and that no end that here a great big captain of industry would put so much effort into his 5 children.
Yes.
And among the things that I would recommend to absolutely everybody is both my parents were always worried about having spoiled children. And I can see that would be, really big, worry if your father is as successful as, but any father, any family that's head of a business has this to worry about because they're probably going to have more resources than lots of other people. Yeah. So how do you avoid having them be spoiled? And I can't swear that I'm not spoiled, but I can swear that my father put a lot of effort into preventing that. And among the things that he did is he made sure that we went we went to private schools, but we also went to public schools. So that, you know, my little schoolmates would be like, my best friend, her father and mother ran a dairy. And another, her parents worked, or her mother, she was a single mother, and the mother worked behind the jewelry counter in Gilchrist. So they made sure that their children met met people you would meet in public school as well as the ones you'd meet in private school. And I thought that was just brilliant of them.
They did everything for you so that you'd get a broad perspective.
And then another thing, I remember if ever I wanted something, you know, like a new pair of gloves or something, Father's immediate, like automatic response was, earn it. You know, we had allowances that we had to, stuff that we had to do to earn what we wanted. And I you know, in retrospect, I love that because it imbued all of us with a work ethic.
Yes.
Yes.
It was just fabulous training. And I love it that my parents didn't leave it to accident how we grew up. And then again, you know, I can't swear that how good a job they did because I'm the one who's the recipient of it. But I think I've had a really good life and I thank them for it.
And you didn't get instant gratification. They made you earn it. And that's a thing that, you know, we're told today, everything's so instant. And it
yeah. And Father was very, and Mother were both very sparing of praise. You know, you hear a lot today that you want people to have self-esteem, but now, we didn't discuss that back in the 1940s and 1950s. Self-esteem, I don't think was on the radar, but they did want people to, or they did want their children to have values, and so kind of here's how they went about it. And how about it's somewhat opposite of what goes on today. You didn't get praised unless you'd earned it.
Right.
Yes.
And so if you were praised, boy, you felt as if you were walking on top of the world. And you had to stretch to gain that praise.
I agree with you because my father was the same. Like when he said something and where it was praise for me, something I had done well, it was like, wow, that came from my father.
Right.
Yeah, it had value.
Yes.
Well, I mean, can you imagine a world where you go to school and nobody fails? Like, you know from your life that there is losers and there's winners, there's failures and there's winners. That's reality. No zeros in school. That has got nothing to do with reality.
Well, my worry is one of the things that I love about team sports is what I call losing lessons, because your team at some point is going to lose, and you have to learn how to lose. You have to learn that it's not the end of the world, and you try again, and maybe you rebuild, and you still keep trying. I love sports to teach losing lessons.
Yes.
And what happens if nobody ever learns that you can lose? You're going to get a great big ugly shock when you go out into the real world.
Yes,
exactly.
Absolutely right.
Wow.
And so, like for Ruth and I came from such a fabulous home. And my biggest concern when I was small was being out in the driveway playing with my Tonka trucks. I mean it. You know, when I was a police officer my whole life, 35 years. And when I went to police training and then went out to work in the world, I have to say, in so many respects, I was naive. And that came from my upbringing. And Ruth, she can tell you the same thing.
Yeah, we came from blessed homes as well. We didn't come from like a wealthy home like yours, but we were very blessed and rich in love and family.
But to me, that's the only thing that counts.
Yes. Yeah. And we know that when you fall down and you can still look up, you can get up.
Yes. And I didn't know before that you were in law enforcement. I love law enforcement, which makes me think of where my great appreciation for law enforcement comes. Its very beginnings was when I was in public school. One of my friends was Dickie Hallett, whose father was a police officer. And we were in the same school bus. And Dickie Hallett would be telling the stories of, oh, good Lord, of what his father had done that night. And it left me with just, you know, police people, I'm pretty sure it's universal. I know in the United States, the police protect and serve.
Yes.
And what a wonderful thing to protect and serve.
Here's
And,
my book.
my life as a cop, yay, yay. Okay, I'm gonna, you have to hold it up again at some point when I can take notes, because I'm gonna buy it, guaranteed.
And here's Ruth's.
My life with a cop, yay. Then you have to appreciate something that I've done in my apartment building.
Yes.
Okay.
There are 42 people who live in my apartment building, and we have organized the Betsy Ross Brigade. Actually, is she well known in Canada? She's the one who used to sew American flags for the Revolution. Maybe we're in the other side of this, but in any case, we have sewn 156 face masks so far to give to the local sheriff's department.
Nice.
Oh, awesome.
Very
And
nice.
that's out of gratitude, because I'm going to get teary when I tell this, but we know that they protect us and serve us. And so we wanted to protect and serve them. And
Nice.
face mask was the way to do it.
Nice.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I got some feedback on it, that it just meant the world to them that a building had taken the trouble to sew 156 masks.
Yeah,
wonderful.
that's a brilliant idea. It really is.
Well, I think I'm going to win the popularity contest with our local sheriff's office.
Well,
Well,
Which I don't mind one little bit, because I love law enforcement.
oh, good.
well, thank you.
Well, let's just get back to your family business. You were the daughter. Your father owned the Sheraton chain, and what happened? Is it still part of your life today?
It's not, because the Henderson Estate Company, we all invest together, so we're still together as a family. But when Father died, we sold the company.
Okay.
Which, from my point of view, was a really good thing, because it meant that we could diversify.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which turned out to be a fabulous thing. So, although I'm very much in favor of family businesses continuing in the family, and the family that I married into, which I love more than my life, the Perdue family, we produce chickens, and in a good year, which this is not,
Yes.
we can sell chickens and grain in up to 100 different countries.
Wow.
And I hate to think of what it is today, so I won't think about it.
Yeah.
Yes.
It'll get back there.
Oh, yes, please.
Yeah.
But the Hendersons and the Perdues seem to me just remarkably similar, with one exception. The Perdues, year after year, there's a family question. Do we keep it in the family, or do we cash out? And year after year, I mean, actually it's no question, it's an automatic rubber stamp as far as I can tell. Yeah, we keep it in the family. And for families who are thinking, do we cash out or do we continue generation after generation? I would say on odds of about 1,000 to 1 that it's better to keep it in the family.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's so much pride that comes with being part of a family business. I mean, the Hendersons, we're still a family business, but we can't walk by a Sheraton hotel and think, oh, Dad is head of this.
Yes.
But that's the smallest part. The biggest part is when you're a family-owned business, you can afford to make very long-term decisions. You don't have to worry about the next quarter and what the stockholders are going to say. And allow me to give you a very boastful example of that.
Sure. We'd love to hear it.
Please.
Okay. We decided, and I'm losing track of time a little bit, but I think
Just carry on. It's perfect.
Well, actually, I meant in years. The decision that I'm about to make, it might have been 12 years ago, maybe it was 15 years ago. But Perdue Farms decided we wanted to go organic. And today we're the largest producer of organic chicken in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
But frankly, it took years to be a success. And I think a stockholder-owned company probably couldn't afford to be lagging behind year after year after year, because there's a saying in the chicken industry that anybody can grow organic chicken. I mean, anybody could do it.
Mm-hmm.
The only problem is without modern medication, they probably all go dead.
Yeah.
So you have to, there's a fantastic amount. I talked with the veterinarian who was in charge of this, because somewhere after about 10 years, we got it all right. But he told me there are 100 things you have to get right. You have to have the biosecurity right. You have to have the diet right. You have probiotics right. Just on and on and on. And then finally, we got it. So we are now the largest producer of organic chicken in the world. And I don't think we could have done it if there wasn't a family who was patient with years of learning.
Yes.
Right. Another question I wanted to ask of you, like your husband, Frank Perdue, you know, in a different sense from your dad, was a very successful man in his own right too.
Mm-hmm.
And so what would you view as some of his biggest nuggets?
Ah, well,
that's a whole nother story, right?
yes, my husband was my hero from beginning to end. I just admired him so much, and I fought pretty hard for him not to know how much I admired him. But he was just an extraordinary human being. But he had in common with my father, both men felt that their entire success came from the men and women who worked with them.
Mm.
And that meant that he put extraordinary effort into showing his appreciation for them. And one of the things that I had a minor role in, I had a big role in it. Since I came from the hospitality industry, naturally, I think that everything gets solved by hospitality.
Yes.
Right.
Okay, so when we were first married, and we're talking 1988, we'd just come back from our honeymoon, and we were walking along the beach in Rhode Island, and it was late summer, and not many people there, and we're walking along carrying our sandals, and it's romantic. And suddenly I look up at him and I say, Frank, I think we should entertain every single person who works for the company. And well, that took him aback, because he said, there's 16,000 people who work for the company at the time in 1988.
Wow.
That's completely impractical. And I said, as if I hadn't heard him, I think we ought to invite them 100 at a time. And he said, wait, that's way too many. And I said, again, as if I hadn't quite heard him, I think we should start next month. No, that's way too soon. And I said, let's start with the secretaries, because they can tell everybody that our parties are fun and not scary.
Right.
That's right. Wow. What a great idea.
Well, so we went round and round with him saying no, as if I'd stepped down from another planet. But then as we continued talking, I could tell from his body language that he was starting to consider it. And as we kept talking, finally he said, I like it. And
Wow.
And I know what made him hesitant, because he was actually a somewhat shy person, and the idea of having 100 people in our house 3 times a month,
Okay.
year in and year out, that was way, way, way outside his comfort zone.
Right.
But I know what made him decide to say yes, because as far as I could tell from all the years I knew him, a lot of his bandwidth went into communicating to people how important they were to him. And this, even though he was shy, it was a really good way of doing it. And so beginning in September, like 6 weeks later, 3 times a month for years and years and years, we would have Perdue associates in our home for dinner, 100 at a time.
Good for you.
And he would do something that I thought was just, who else would do what I'm about to describe? Frank Perdue was the person whose name was on the checks of each of his employees. But our downstairs living room was sort of configured into being like having it was buffet, and there would be a great big long buffet table where we would serve dinner. Wasn't me, because it would be Frank who would wait on his employees. And how many heads of Fortune 500 size companies would wait on their employees? And that was, having them in our house for dinner and waiting on them was a way of communicating how important they were.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Right.
Wow.
What a great leadership quality, and great leaders of the past, like President Eisenhower was known to do that to the troops.
Actually, I want to go back to the dinner parties, because there was another thing that Frank did that I thought was just tremendous for communicating people that they're important.
Mm-hmm.
At these parties, he would talk with each person individually, and he had a gift for, if he's talking with you, you're the center of his universe at that moment.
Yeah.
The rest of the world didn't exist. And I used to notice in every situation I ever saw him in, that he would talk 10% of the time and listen 90% of the time. And that makes you feel important if this person is just enveloping you with the importance of you. I mean,
yeah, just focusing just right on you. Yeah, that's one of the big things about leadership and listening. Wow.
And then another part, at the end of the evening, he'd stand up in front of his employees, 100 at a time, and he'd tell them what was going on in the company. And he'd tell the good, the bad, and the ugly. He'd tell the challenges, you know, the things, the contract that we lost, or he'd tell about whatever it is that was just really going well. And, you know, what must that mean for the person in the audience that, you know, you're a truck driver, you're a sanitation worker, you're a veterinarian, you're a secretary, whoever you are.
Yes.
The big boss is sharing the most inside information, what he'd share with the board of directors, sharing it with you. Cool?
That is so cool. And
yeah.
he definitely had the same as your father, the leadership of, or the persuasion of inspiration. He inspired them.
Yeah. And then the final thing at the end of those meetings, he would look across, you know, 100 people, and he'd say, and he had a gift for making it sound as if he was talking to you, but he would say, I know that and he would say it in different words, but this was the thought. I know the company wouldn't be what it is today without you.
Wow.
Wow, that's exciting.
You grew up in a wonderful home. You grew up in such a good environment. Your father was teaching you all the time, and I guess you had what it took. You had the questions. You knew how to ask.
Well, you know, my grandfather was a historian. And I kind of think that I inherited the historian gene. I mean, I'm speaking metaphorically. I don't think there is a historian gene.
Yeah, that's right.
Unless there is. I mean, who knows?
Yeah, there might be.
But I still have I feel that I relate to my grandfather. I want to know what happened. I want to know why. And I want to share it. So maybe I'd never thought of this before, but I mean, what if I do have the historian gene and want to find out what happened and share it?
Yes.
I think you do, and I think it's fabulous.
Thank you.
Well, we need to wrap up. So have you got one last nugget that you want to share?
Yes.
Okay.
That's not helpful. Here's the last nugget. I've enjoyed this so much. I want to spend more time with you. There.
Oh,
thank you very much.
We are just blessed to have this time with you and to get to know you. And your stories are so intriguing. I want to work for you.
Thank you.
Just let our viewers know, where can they get to know about your story?
Oh, I'd love it, because I have written a book, and it's with Mark Victor Hansen. And you probably know him, even if you don't instantly recognize the name, but he's the co-author of the Chicken Soup for the Soul series.
Yes.
He has, oh yes, actually our audience would know about him because he's been a guest with you.
Yes, that's right. Yes, they do know.
Well, he has sold 500 million books. I mean, he's in the Guinness Book of World Records for that. OMG. Yeah. Well, I have had the incredible honor of being a co-author with him of this book.
Wow, wow, wow.
Yeah, and they can get it free.
Free?
You can go to Amazon and look up Mark Victor Hansen or Mitzi Perdue, and you can get the book. But you can also get it free because Mark Victor Hansen wants it in your hands. If you will go to the word reception,
yes,
at markvictorhansen.com.
Yes.
And he will tell you, he will send to you, it will be a PDF rather than the actual book that you'd get at Amazon. But it's called How to Be Up in Times When It's Down.
Yes.
Nice. Wow.
And the theory behind it is there's a lot of advice and wisdom that can be shared with people to help them get through these rough times. And that's what the book's about.
Great.
So we will make sure that that's in our show notes on this episode, How to Be Up in Down Times. And they just have to go to reception@markvictorhansen.com to get the PDF. Thank you for giving that gift to our listeners and our viewers. That's so awesome of you, Mitzi.
Well, I want to share it. And I mean, if they want to shovel money my way, go to Amazon. but I recommend, in case I'm not your favorite charity, get it free at at Mark's website.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
And it's been an honor and a pleasure.
Thanks.
It's a joy.
Thank you. Thanks for tuning in at Brewed Awakening.
If you found this episode inspiring today, please rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast and help us reach a greater audience to inspire more people.
Or if you have a question you'd like us to answer on the show, please send us a line at info@brewedawakeningpodcast.com. Again, that's info@brewedawakeningpodcast.com.
So let's miraculously transform the world together. Until next time, enjoy your coffee.
And remember, wake up and live.